Good morning and welcome to St James's Church. My name is Naomi. I'm the operations manager, so I work in the office. I want to give you a really particularly warm welcome if it's one of your first times worshipping with us this morning. And if you are worshipping with us online, welcome to you. It's a beautiful morning. I think the sun is still shining. And this got a cheer at the first service. We're going to start with some notices. Excellent. So, the week ahead, we're currently in Thy Kingdom Come. So Thy Kingdom Come is a time of global prayer that happens between Ascension and Pentecost. And this coming week, in fact, we're going to set up straight after this service. So this coming week, there will be prayer space in church here. I really encourage you to come along to that. Grab a flyer on your way out because there are certain times when we've got dedicated sessions for children and young people. And so that will be only for children and young people so that we're making sure we're kind of adhering to our safeguarding requirements. Really want to encourage you to come along. The space will be open 9 till 9 every day with those within those dedicated sessions. And there are also some guided sessions. So tomorrow night I'll be leading a guided hour of prayer around those themes, praying for our world and praying for the themes of Thy Kingdom Come. So if you want something that's a bit more structured, come along to some of those guided sessions as well. On Saturday, also within Thy Kingdom Come, Turret House of Prayer are leading a prayer walk. I can't remember all the details, but I know you've got to sign up at the link. So that is what I'm going to tell you. Sign up at the link that is in the weekly mail. Because I do think a lot of people will be interested in that. This week as well is Christian Aid Week. And on next Sunday, we will be having a cake sale. So bring your cakes, bring your cash. And all the proceeds will go to Christian Aid. And Trinity Church, their coffee stop on Saturday morning, which I think is 9:30 till 12:30, is also in aid of Christian Aid. The barbecue, the slides up there, is on Saturday the 8th of June, 12 till 4 on the Castle Field, and we're really encouraging people to sign up to be stewards or be on the kids team at the barbecue. Thank you to those people who have been in touch and said they would like to do a 2-hour slot. If you still want to let me know, that would be great. You do need a current DBS to be on the kids team. And I'm going to ask Will to come on up and tell us about Cap Money, which is kicking off in June. Will.
Thank you. Hello, 1, 2.
It's all right.
Hello, right. Hi, good morning, church. I'm here to tell you about Cap Money. Hopefully we've got a video to see first to give you a bit of an introduction.
In the UK today, 20 million adults admit to having struggled with their finances. That's about 1 in every 3 of us. So how do we stay in control of our money in a world that wants to control it for us? I've got a team of the greatest money experts in their fields, ready and waiting to share their wisdom. For all of us, for free.
Fantastic! Let's do it. We'll go through a few different examples, if that's okay with you.
Yes, please.
Managing money and mastering your money is about being able to enjoy life.
Oh, I love that. That's brilliant. Do you know what, Peter? I think even I've understood that. Whatever you're trying to achieve with your finances, whether it's getting on top of debts, understanding your spending, or learning to have a healthier relationship with money, our free coaching can help. Find free money coaching near you.
Okay, so we've got a Cap Money course coming up in June. Just thought I'd tell you a little bit about it. Everyone can always improve in how they handle money, and the Cap Money course will teach people how to budget. Then it will help people to balance their budget, because sometimes we find we've got more going out than we've got coming in, and over time, of course, that becomes a problem. And we also teach people something called the Cap Money system, which helps you to keep your budget on track going forward year after year. We manage this by having a course of 3 sessions. Each of them's about 90 minutes, and a group of people and a group of coaches. So our next session is coming up and starting on the evening of Tuesday, the 4th of June. So if you're interested in coming along because you'd like to brush up on your money skills, or you know someone who's feeling a little bit uncertain because times are difficult for a lot of people at the moment, costs are rising a lot faster than people's income, then come and find me and ask some questions, or find Chris Donald or Matt, or you will find there are some flyers just out in the foyer underneath the big CAP banner. So do encourage people to come along who you think will be helped by that, and we would be delighted to help them get in control of their money and therefore be more in control of their life. Thank you.
One of the things I like about Burnley is its council motto, hold to the truth. And in this passage, Jesus shows us that he is the truth and that he is coming again. So John 14, do not let your hearts be troubled. Believe in God, believe also in me. My Father's house has many rooms. If that were not so, would I have told you that I am going there to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, that you also may be where I am. You know the way to the place where I am going. Thomas said to him, Lord, we don't know where you are going, so how can we know the way? Jesus answered, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. If you really know me, you will know my Father as well. From now on, you do know him and have seen him. This is the word of the Lord.
Can I just give you that? Don't throw it. Love it. I think... Oh. Lost my bookmark. I think in this passage as we start it, it says, do not let your hearts be troubled. You have to know what's just happened. And in the way that John has written his gospel, in John 13, a load of things have been going on. First, you've got Jesus washing the disciples' feet, which blew their minds. This is not what we expect our master to be doing. And he says, you've got to be a servant of one another if you're going to have anything to do with what I'm doing. So that's blown their minds. Then he says at the table, someone's going to betray me, and they're looking around thinking, which one of us is it? Then he talks about Peter's denial and the fact that Peter's going to disown him. So their minds are rocked by all of this. And then in the middle of that, he then says, a new commandment I give to you. This is in John 13. Does anybody know, I asked this in the first service, does anybody know what that new commandment is that he gives his disciples? Sorry, all I heard was mama, 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 mama. Someone say it louder. Love one another as I have loved you. That's the new commandment he gives to his disciples. So all this trouble, all this challenge to what they think and know, and then something fresh just thrown into the mix in the middle of it all. So that's why I think chapter 14 starts with, do not let your hearts be troubled. I was chatting to somebody at the end of the first service about how sometimes their face betrays how they're thinking and feeling as things are happening. And I can't imagine the disciples are hiding from Jesus what they're feeling inside. Certainly not Peter, amongst all of the disciples, but just this genuine kind of sense of like, what is going on? So Jesus brings this comforting word. And part of that comforting word is he tells them about what he has planned for them and is preparing for them. I go and prepare a place for you. Can we have up those 4 images that we've got? So there is a wonderful place on Instagram. We'll just start with the first one. Wonderful place on Instagram called Cabins Off Grid. And you can find that account and you can follow it and you can dream of places you'd like to be. If you're sat at home, as we have been in the wet and the cold until the last couple of days, thinking, great, we are in the Dribble Valley. But these images are all kind of different places that are shared on this Instagram account. What I love about the account is the person who wrote it or is running this account doesn't always say where these places are. So you've got lots of comments after each of these images going, where is this? I want to be there now. How do I get there? And you can just imagine if they were actually shared, this is where it is. Can you imagine waking up there and you open the door and there's like loads of people just outside going, can we come in and have a look? Because it looked amazing on Instagram. Just want to check it's the same. We're going to go back through them. What I want you to do is just put your hand up for the one that you'd like, that's where you'd like to be. Obviously not right now, because we're having a good time here. But if you could, which one would you like to go? Number 2? Number 3? Go back, sorry. Was it too fast for you? Okay, number 1. Who would like to be there? Number 2. I'm leaning towards number 2 because I love that view. Number 3. That view's pretty cool as well, yeah. Who's picking more than one? Okay, number 4. That's my favourite. Why do you think that might be my favourite? It's food on the table. What? You know me well. Now, I'm just like picturing, what is the place that's being prepared for us? Like Jesus has been at it for 2,000 years. I mean, it's going to be amazing, isn't it? I go to prepare a place for you. It's not going to be, have you ever had the phone call from somebody saying, can I just stop the night? You're like, oh, great. And then you've got to clear stuff out of the spare room, you've got to make a bed, you've got to do all sorts of stuff. That's not what's happening, I don't think. That's not the preparation that's going into this for us. This place that's being prepared. It's not a drafty attic with no windows. It's going to be something amazing. And he's reminding the disciples that as his friends, as his followers, with all the turmoil of what's going on around them, with all the stuff they don't understand, he's going to prepare a place for them. And they can know that place is going to be something special. And here's the thing, just like in our Instagram account and the people commenting saying, we don't know where this is, Thomas jumps in and he says, Lord, we don't know where you're going, so how can we know the way? But Jesus has just given them a clue because he said, I will come back and take you to be with me, that you also may be with me where I am. You know the way to the place I'm going. And I'm imagining Jesus doing a little twinkle in his eye, because he then says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. It's as if he's saying, well, I've already told you this, Thomas. I am the way. Now, some of the pictures that we've had as we've gone through the I ams sound more like metaphors. Jesus isn't literally bread, literally a gate. They're pictures for us of what Jesus represents to us. But here, with these 3 things he mentions, these are the reality of who Jesus is. He's not saying he's like the way, he is the way. He's not saying he's some kind of truth, he is the truth. And we can only know life through him. He is life. And so there's this amazing kind of, just in this one verse from Jesus, I am the truth, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. There's loads packed into that, and we're just going to explore it together. So with Thomas having said he doesn't know the way, I just want us to think a little bit about the way. So I'm not great at directions. I once went to visit a friend who was working at another church when I was in London, and I went the wrong way around the M25. So he lived about 20 minutes around the M25 once I got to the M25. But instead of going that way, I went that way. But you know when you just want to keep going because you've stubbornly just done something. And about halfway I thought, this is wrong. But I just kept going because I thought, well, I'll come round again. I just need to make sure I don't go past, otherwise I'm just going to keep going round. And then when I eventually arrived, he said, you've taken ages. I said, I know, M25. But not for the reasons he thought. And I've become so reliant upon Google Maps I can't get anywhere without, I don't know what we did before phones and Google Maps and TomToms when it was like little sat-nav computer things. Did we all just park in lay-bys and read maps to check where we were going? Every half an hour. I'm not sure we're on the right road. Quick stop. There's a lay-by. Let's go. I don't know what we did. But I just can't get anywhere without it. And sometimes I've got to, I don't know, have you been on a journey and your phone's dying and you need to get home, but you think, I know that as soon as my phone goes off, I could be anywhere. I've no idea what I'm doing anymore. And sometimes I've thought about ringing Lisa when my phone is dying and saying, tell the kids I love them. I may not see you again because I don't know if I'm going to get home. And then I arrive home hours later because she's been tracking me and then my phone disappears because power's gone and everything. She's like, you were nearly home. Where have you been? Went via Lancaster. Because I forgot to take the turning off the M6, so I just kept going. And then you pretty much have to go to Lancaster before you can turn around and come back. Who made these roads? That's stupid, isn't it? Should be built for people like me. Massive neon signs everywhere. Turn off here, you numpty, or something, just so I'd get it right. But I don't know the way often, but sometimes I'm not great at paying attention to what's been told to me. So even last night we did this. We were coming back from being somewhere together, and the sat-nav is, to be honest, the sat-nav on the Google Maps was telling me one thing, and Lisa was telling me something else. So I feel like I've got an excuse for not doing as I was told. But at one point, Lisa was going, turn left, turn left, turn left. We haven't turned left. And I just kept going, we should have turned left. I know, but it was saying go straight on. You know, and I wasn't listening, I should have paid attention. And then I did it again. We had a lovely evening, and then I'd nearly ruined it by not paying attention twice in the car on the way home. But I struggled to kind of allow somebody else to be in control, perhaps. Or I know the way, I know best. And here's the thing with Jesus, he's saying, I am the way. There is no other way. So it's about putting our trust in him, but also thinking about what it means to follow in the way of Jesus. And the disciples grasped this really well because they hung out with Jesus, despite this conversation that's happening where Thomas says, we don't know the way. And Jesus is like, you do. If you think back to when Jesus is praying, and he goes off and he does his prayers and he comes back, there's a point where the disciples say to him, teach us how to pray. And then he teaches them the Lord's Prayer. Got this beautiful prayer because the disciples asked the question, teach us how to pray. They knew how to pray. They'd been praying. These were young Jewish boys who'd been brought up with the prayers in the Psalms and all sorts of stuff. They knew how to pray, but they didn't know prayer the way Jesus knew it. And so there's something about what Jesus did when he prayed that made the disciples say, teach us how to pray. If we could bring up the next image. This is a picture of me in the gym earlier this week. What do you mean, oh, no, it's not? You're saying that because you were at the first service and you know it's not. But imagine this is kind of the exercise that I need to do if I'm going to keep myself physically fit. I don't know what weight that is looking at the image. I'm imagining that's quite strenuous effort to lift that. But here's the thing, we're encouraged not so much to do physical exercise, though that is helpful for the body, but to do spiritual exercise. In fact, Paul writes about it. And he says about, needing to do spiritual exercise. In fact, the word that he uses when he talks about it is, he says this, train yourselves to be godly, for physical training is of some benefit, but godliness has value for all things. And when he's speaking of exercise and training, Paul is using the word gymnase, which is where we get our word gymnasium. He's saying, get yourselves into a spiritual gym and do the spiritual exercise that's needed to get you fit in your relationship, in your following of the way. And the first disciples were known as followers of the way. That's how they were described before they became Christians. And a disciple just means an apprentice to one. So being an apprentice, if you know anything about apprentices, is they watch what is happening that someone else is doing, and then they copy that. They do that. In fact, another thing Paul says is, follow me as I follow Christ. And the word there used is where we get the word mimic from, to copy. Literally imitate me. Do what I do. And then you'll get it. Do what I do. I don't know if you remember the kind of wristbands that we used to have. What would Jesus do? WWJD. I'm thinking of launching some new merchandise because I think the Christian world is long overdue. But here's what I think we'd need to have on it. IALMLAJWIHWLI. You'll need to do the exercise in a physical gym to build your wrists so they can cope with a wristband with all of that on it. It's basically, I'm living my life as Jesus would if he were living it. That's what we're encouraged to be as disciples. Dallas Willard says that in his book that he writes about the spiritual disciplines. He is asked, what is a disciple? And this is what he says: discipleship is learning from Jesus Christ how to live my life as he would live it if he were me. That's what it means to follow the way. Am I paying attention to the spiritual practices that will help me follow the way? And the way of Jesus is about doing the things Jesus did. It's a challenge for me to think about, how am I doing? Am I spiritually flabby? Or am I spiritually in the gym, working on those practices that help me draw closer to God? It's interesting that sometimes I think we can look at some of the episodes in Jesus' life and wonder what's happening. So after his baptism, he's driven out into the desert, 40 days and 40 nights. But he's driven out by the Holy Spirit, firstly. And then we can think he was all alone out there. And yet a key spiritual practice is solitude. And then we think, when he's at his weakest, perhaps, here comes the enemy to tempt him. But what if that's his strongest? He's had 40 days in the wilderness to pray, spend time with his Father, to get ready for what's coming. And sometimes we can look at that, I think, and think, oh, at his weakest, not had any food, not had any drink. But here he is, being prepared spiritually to tackle what's coming. That's what walking the way looks like for us, is following Jesus' example and stepping into what he is going to do. Essential practices in our relationships, in our attitudes, in the way we go about things. Are we copying Jesus? And then he moves into, he's talked about the way, he's reminded them he is the way, and then he says this: it's the truth. Now, I don't know if you found this on, oh, by the way, I was told in the first service that I'd got my slides wrong, and instead of saying the truth, it says the truth. And I was going to try and convince you that that's actually how you're supposed to spell it. And you were just going to blindly believe me, because that's what truth has become. A little bit in our culture. Whatever I tell you is the truth. That's okay. It's the truth, because it's my truth. It's what I believe. It's my truth. It's what I believe. And if you go anywhere on social media or even reading the news, there are arguments and counter-arguments about everything, about who is right and where the truth is. And yet Jesus isn't just talking about a truth. He's talking about being the deepest reality that there is. He is the truth, by which we need to think about how we orientate our whole lives around this truth of who he is to us. An old story is told often of this little village, and there's a clockmaker, and every morning he looks out of his window as he sets the clocks in his study or clock place. What would you call it if you were making clocks and you had a workshop? There you go, thank you. Always helpful, my wife. And there he is in his workshop, thank you, and he checks the time by staring at the church clock. So he sets his time according to the church clock. The person who is running the church clock looks across and sees the tower in the middle of the square, and there's a clock there, so they set their time to that. The person in the tower is listening for the clocks in the workshop to chime and go off so they can set their time to the workshop time. Who's got the right time? And in our culture, in terms of the truth, people are looking everywhere for who's got the truth. Whose truth do we pay attention to? Who actually knows what is going on? Jesus is the truth. And in fact, John talks so much about the truth in the whole of this book. You could almost say that John's book is about these three things that we're looking at: the way, the truth, and the life. It just all the way through it. But he talks about truth a lot. Earlier in the context of a dispute about who Jesus is, in chapter 8, we have Jesus saying, "If you hold to my teaching, you are really my disciples. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." At the end of 1 John, which we think may also have been written by the same John that wrote the Gospels, but we're not sure because he didn't kind of say, "This is from me, John," but it's very similar to 2 John and 3 John, so we think maybe it's the same guy. He says this, "We know also that the Son of God has come and given us understanding so that we may know him who is true. And we are in him who is true by being in his Son, Jesus Christ. He is the true God and eternal life." John even addresses his third letter like this: "To my dear friend Gaius, whom I love in the truth." He then says, "It gives me great joy when some believers came and testified about your faithfulness to the truth, telling you how to continue to walk in it." Reference to the way, perhaps. "I have no greater joy than to hear my children are walking in the truth." It's like the way and the truth are just intertwined. They're not separate things. There's not one instead of the other. And if you like, it feels to me like John's writing in shorthand about Jesus. And he is the truth that we need to hold to and follow. In his second letter to the church in Corinth, Paul writes this: "Whenever anyone turns to the Lord, the veil is taken away. Now the Lord is Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. And all who have unveiled faces contemplate the Lord's glory. We're being transformed into his image with ever-increasing glory, which comes from the Lord, who is the Spirit." And that word contemplate can also be translated reflect. I wonder if you and I reflect Jesus to other people because we're followers of the way. Are we living in the truth and the reality of who he is? So his life so shapes our life that people see us and see something of Jesus in us. Not because we're special, but because he's special. Not because what I'm doing is making a difference, but because God in me is making a difference, because I'm choosing to be a follower of the way. And that's a bit of a challenge for me, thinking like, what do people see? It's easy in some ways to come along to church, be it to preach or to do something, and people see you here, just like this. But there are people who live with me, who know what I'm really like, who know whether I am grumpy and moody and not necessarily always thoughtful about the things I say and do, because they know they're there all the time. So they get to see everything. And often, my daughters particularly, will pull me up if I say something or do something. Because, "Oh, that's not what you said when you were talking to us at home. That story is just shared from the front of the I don't remember it like that. This is what really happened." But we can do that and not realize that actually there's someone who is paying attention, knows us completely. And sometimes I think we're afraid to be in God's presence and to come to him fully as we are. There's a great song that we used to sing. I think we still sing it sometimes, but that in it encapsulates something beautiful. "Boldly I approach your throne." Not because I've done anything, because of what Jesus has done for me. He's made a way. He's the way. And the unveiled faces that Paul's talking about can only come about because of what Jesus has done, so that we can now be in his presence and not be afraid. If you go back to the Old Testament, Moses, when he'd been in God's presence, came out and he had to put a veil over his face because the people were afraid. They stood at a distance. They didn't want to go near him. So he wore a veil. There is no veil now. I loved the freedom in the first service. There were two little girls, and they were just running around with ribbons. Why don't we worship like that? That would be cool, wouldn't it? If we just ran, who would like to run around with a ribbon, but they just haven't thought, Well, maybe I'm not supposed to, so I won't get up. It's for the children. I'll let them run around with ribbons, and I'll just enjoy them doing it. But how many of you secretly just say, I want to run around with a ribbon and not care what anybody else is thinking or looking at me? I'm just going to do it because I want to delight in God's presence with a ribbon. Anyone else? Or just me? I'd like to do it. Maybe that's why I'm a kids worker or a youth worker. It's just like, it just comes naturally. But there's something in me that just thinks there's something about the freedom and that delight that children have that I want to be part of my relationship with God. A freedom where there's no guile, there's no pretense. They're just who they are. And I think sometimes as adults we lose that. We grow up and become something else. And for me, there's something about that delight that we can have, the freedom that comes from knowing Jesus and his truth revealing fully who God is and also who we are, made in his image, loved by our Creator God. And there's nothing where God looks at you and has disdain or, doesn't like what he sees. Delights in you. And then we've got the beginning of John's Gospel. It's as if he's setting us up for the way, the truth, and the life. So right at the beginning of John's Gospel, he says this, in the beginning was the Word, deliberately echoing the first words of Genesis. And he was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. In him was life. And that life was the light of all humankind. And those three things, if you were to look at the way and truth and life and follow them through John's Gospel, they just keep appearing. It's like his thematic stuff that he's doing all the way through the Gospel, which is why John 10:10 has come up in all of these preachers, because it links so much of what we're talking about. If I follow in the way of Jesus, if I know that he is the ultimate truth for my life and who I am, and I can trust in that above all the other things that are trying to tell me other stuff, then I can know life, because that's what Jesus has come to bring me. I just want to finish with these questions for us. Do you, do we, do I need to get going with some spiritual training as I'm following the way? Do I need to look again at my practices that help me stay close to Jesus? Have I got spiritually flabby and I need to tone myself up? That might be prayer, that might be Bible reading, that might be solitude, that might be celebration, that might be feasting, that might be fasting. All of those are spiritual disciplines talked about in the New Testament, talked about for followers of the way. Do I need to press into some of those in my own life? If I found this freedom, how does knowing the most real person who's ever lived, who is the most real deal I'll ever meet, how does knowing him transform the way I think about myself and my life? Knowing his truth spoken over my life rather than, the truths that aren't true that may be spoken over us. And are we embracing, because of those things, the life that Jesus offers? Let's pray. Lord, thank you for just a picture that you give us just in these few verses of your relationship with us, the love you have for your disciples, that you comfort them. You want them to know this great promise of being with you. And even there where they don't fully get it, you're kind to them as you speak. You remind them of who you are. You remind us today of who you are, the way, the truth, and the life for us. Help us to know what it is to walk in your ways, to know your truth above other things that compete for our attention, that tell us they're the truth, but are not. Would you help us to enter more fully into the life that you have for us, to embrace the life that you've given us, to come at that with the freedom and the delight of a tiny child as we trust in you, our Father. Amen.
No prayers? No.